Hey everybody, Dano here. Today I'm going to do a video on making the jump from using a laptop to image with in astrophotography to using this little guy right here, the ASIair Plus. So when I started out doing astrophotography, I basically started like most people do with just a tripod and a camera, doing Milky Way stuff and taking pictures of stars and landscapes and stuff like that. And then I graduated to a star tracker and an intervalometer to control the camera with. And when I got my first equatorial mount, I started using a laptop, and I used the program called Astrophotography Tool, otherwise known as APT. There's several different programs to use. I had downloaded Nina, which was, I think it was fairly new at the time, and I was about to use it, and I bought my first ASIair, which was the second version. It was the Pro. It was like this one, but it didn't have the antenna. So the Wi-Fi reach is pretty bad on the ASIair Pro. This one is much better with the antenna, and I believe the newest version, the ASIair Mini, has a good range with it as well, although it doesn't have the USB 3 ports. So with the laptop, I was using APT and PHD2, and in APT you have to download a certain catalog, if I remember correctly, to use plate solving. And that was my biggest issue with using a star tracker, is I couldn't find objects. I finally got plate solving to work. It was difficult for me. It took me forever to figure it out. And but it was such a pain to drag all this stuff out and hook up the laptop, and then you're running PhD, which I think it's PhD2 now, but that stands for Push Your Dummy. It's a guiding software. And then APT for image capture. I'm sure there's several good videos on APT. I think I watched some of Kurt's videos, AstroQuest, learning how to use the features on APT. I never did buy the paid version. There is a free version. So if all you have is a laptop and you want to try it out, it's a good software to get started with. But when I made the jump to the ASIair Pro, I had issues at first figuring out the settings, getting everything talking to each other. I was using a Wi-Fi dongle with my EQ6, and that was creating issues. My mount is the older version that doesn't have the direct USB plug, so that's how I'd always used it, was with the Wi-Fi dongle. And I finally figured that out, and everything was working well. But the main advantage to me is you can attach these to your imaging train, and it's less hassle than carrying this laptop outside and setting it up. Like I used to set this table up right here outside for imaging, and I don't even have to do that anymore, because I'm connecting to my home router through station mode, and once I get everything set up, focused, I come inside and I can watch my iPad and image from inside. And that's great during cold winter nights, and also summer's coming up and the mosquitoes will be back, and that's really great. So today I'm going to just go over a walkthrough on how this thing works and some of the features. I don't use all the features that this thing has, but they're constantly making updates. I think they just released version 2.1. It supports several Sony cameras, and I'd have to click on there to see which models, but yeah, they're always making updates to this. They're always adding new features. When I first got the Pro, I was connected in Sky Safari, and I was using it as basically like you would Telescopius on a laptop. You can just connect your mount and you could just point to whatever target, and you could see your reticle going over to that target. And eventually they added the Sky Atlas inside the ASIair Pro software, and that's all I use now. So I'm going to go over why I like this thing so much, and it really changed imaging for me. It simplified it, and their logo or their slogan is as easy as 1, 2, 3. And once you get everything connected and all your settings dialed in, it really is easy. I mean, this thing it's been a game changer for me. And so today I'm just going to go over my workflow using the ASIair Plus. So today I'm going to be using the Skywatcher Star Adventure GTI as my mount for this demonstration. And you don't have to have an equatorial mount. You could use a star tracker like I have an Ioptron SkyGuider Pro. And there's several features that you can use with the ASIair that it would benefit you, like plate solving. Plate solving with the laptop and APT was difficult for me, and so I finally got it figured out once I downloaded the right catalog. But nudging the mount and stuff like that, I never really did get a full grasp on it. But with this thing, it'll auto center to your target. Plate solving is super fast, and it's just great. So you could actually use this, and Walt from Delta Astrophotography has a good video using the ASIair just to plate solve, so you can find dimmer targets with a star tracker. First, I'm going to just do a simple setup, and I've got the Skywatcher Star Adventure GTI. I'm just going to call it the GTI from here on out. So first thing you would do is go outside and set your tripod up. If you live in the northern hemisphere, towards Polaris roughly, and then get your tripod level. So I'm just going to pretend I'm facing north here. It's been raining for like 6 years, so the weather's been not very kind this winter here. So hopefully that's going to change in the next few months. We'll see. So anyways, I've adjusted this counterweight shaft here, and I put my Ioptron SkyGuider Pro weight because I'm going to use just a little simple setup. I'm going to use my Canon T7i and a 50mm lens. And so I'm going to slide this in here and tighten it down. Once you've got this thing level, and there is a bubble level right here on the front, so you want to get it as level as you can, roughly facing Polaris. And then once you get your camera or telescope or whatever you have, you want to balance. And I'm going to make another follow-up video to this GTI, but I've been leaving all of the clutches loosened to carry this thing. I was leaving it all connected and tight with the counterweight on when I was carrying it outside, and that is, I made a video on it causing a little bit of play in the RA axis. So I just leave all this stuff loose now, and I think that's a good practice until you're ready to image. So that looks pretty balanced there. So normally I'd be using something like this intervalometer here to control the imaging sequence. I would set my exposure time and ISO, the f-stop, and then I would just set my exposure length here and the number of exposures I want to take, and just hit start, and then just let it do its thing. But no longer going to need this because we have this. All right, so now I'm going to go over hooking all the cables up, connecting your mount and your camera to the ASIair. I don't have a way to connect this to the camera, so what I usually do is just I'll set it on this tray, or I have a little bag like a sandbag or something. If I don't have a way to connect it, I'll just set it below. As long as the cables reach and they don't snag, you'll be okay. So I'm going to power everything with this WattFun 300. I used the 12-volt ports, and I bought this on Amazon a few months ago. It's been a great little battery, but I did a search for another one recently, and I can't find it on Amazon. Walmart has them. I don't know if they discontinued it or what, but any kind of battery. I don't think the Jackery 240 has DC ports. It only has AC, but I try to run everything through DC. So any little power source or power station like this will work. So this is what I'm going to use to power it. So first thing I'm going to do is use this 12-volt cable here. It's got the cigarette lighter plug and then the barrel port on the end, and I'm going to plug it in here. And then I'm going to plug this in to the ASIair to give it power. So the next thing I have here is this USB to micro USB cable, and I'm going to use this to connect the camera up here. If I can find it. There we go. I'm going to connect the camera to the ASIair Plus. Now, something I learned about this is, so on the Plus version you have two USB 3 ports, and they'll have the blue plastic, and then these two are USB 2.0. It's best to put your camera into the 3.0, even though this cable is not a 3.0. This is just probably a 2.0, but it's also best practice to have your memory stick in that USB 3, because it'll write the images faster, and so they'll transfer faster to your tablet or your phone or whatever you're using. So now I have this installed, and that's where my images will download to. I have a little SanDisk memory stick, and I just install that into the other USB port. So we've got the camera connected, we've got power running to the ASIair Plus. Now I'm going to connect, and I've got several cables here, so I've got to dig through these. Okay, which one? That's a barrel port. Of course, it's the last one I grabbed. All right, okay. So this is the cable that comes with the GTI. It's like a printer style cable. I can't think of the name of it right now, but I'm just going to connect that into the GTI, and then this is how the mount is going to communicate with the ASIair Plus, and I'll just plug this in into the 2.0 right here. So everything's connected. I've got the mount connected, got the camera connected, and I've got my memory stick installed, and we've got power connected. Just want to make sure these cables aren't snagging or going to catch or anything. And then the last thing to connect, I've just got a 6-foot 12-volt barrel cable, male to male, and I just stick that in the power port there, and then I'll stick that in one of the 12-volt barrel ports here, and then we're good to go. We're all connected. The final piece of the equation is you'll need an interface to use with the ASIair, since you don't have a laptop screen. So you'll either use you could use your phone or a tablet. I use an iPad, an older iPad, and so I'm going to power everything up. So I'm going to hold the power button on here, so that gets the power turned on, and then there's a 12-volt there's a DC, and that just lit up that cigarette lighter port there. So the power's on. I'm going to turn my camera on, and I'm going to turn the ASIair Plus on. I'm going to open up my iPad. I'm going to go to settings, and that beep means that it's powered on and it's ready to connect. And I am going to switch over to this screenshot of my iPad for the rest of this part. So, oh, I didn't power the mount on. Power the mount. So everything's powered on, everything's connected. Now it's time to get into the ASIair app. All right, so we've got this connected, and we're going to go into the settings, and I'm going to go into Wi-Fi, and it's going to pull up the GTI's Wi-Fi, but I'm not going to use that. I've renamed my Wi-Fi on the ASIair Dan Plus, so I'm going to click on that. And that's connected. I'm going to close that out, and then I'm going to open up the ASIair app. I'm going to enter device. On here, I'm just going to walk through some of the general settings. So everything's connected except for the camera, and sometimes that powers off, and I'm just going to flip the power off and then flip it back on, and that should connect. I'm going to go to this drop down box, and yes, Canon EOS 800D, so I'll select that, and then I will select, with this GTI, I think it's EQ mod mount. I'm going to select that. Now, I was using my Edge HD last time I used this Air, so I'm going to change the focal length here. This is the main and the guide scope. So the first one is your main camera, and we're not using a guide scope in this setup. I'm just using a DSLR. So I'm using a 50mm lens, and under guide camera it has none. And I'm not using an electronic filter wheel, and I'm not using an electronic autofocuser. So with all that set, and I believe this is right, I haven't used the GTI in a little bit, so I have the mount set to EQ mod mount. The main guide, the main scope is 50mm, and it's still keeping that. I'm going to put 0 for the guide scope. I have the EOS 800D and no guide camera, and I'm going to hit enter. Camera settings required. So I'm going to change the settings. I have it on manual, but it was set to 15 seconds. I need to change that to bulb mode, and it's in RAW only, and I think everything should be good. I'm going to hit OK. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go over just the basics here on the home screen. Once you get inside, once you've got everything connected and you input all of your equipment. So the first tab at the top is your Wi-Fi settings, and it also controls your 4 ports on the side of the ASIair. And I usually run 2 dew heaters out of those 2 ports, and then I turn number 3 and number 4 off. And this gives you a lot of useful information. It tells you your CPU temp, but this important right here is this input voltage. With this battery, it's a regulated 12 volt, and the other one I was using, it's not, and it drops below 12, and I get like a low voltage warning with that. So something to keep in mind is you want to make sure you have a regulated 12 volt port. So not going to connect to station mode yet. I'll do that later. And then so tap back on the home screen, and then let's click on the little camera icon and just make sure. So we have a USB 2.0 cable, and that is connected, and the main scope focal length is 50 millimeters. The ISO is set to 1600, and you can change this in-house. So I can just, if I want to change it to 800, you just go in there and click that. And this is another cool feature. You can save your image to your DSLR, or you can just save it to the memory stick on your ASIair. And if you just like pop in your memory card from your DSLR into your laptop or whatever to get your images, you can click this on if you want to. But I just saved mine to the USB stick. Okay, and we'll check advanced settings. And I have auto white balance on screen. I do not have bin turned on. I don't have continuous preview turned on. And the cooling doesn't apply to this DSLR. So that's all the settings for that. Now in this setup, I'm not going to use the guiding. So I don't have a guide cam. So the little PhD icon is grayed out. And on the mount, with this GTI, the settings are, you have to switch, the mount selection is going to be EQ mod mount, and that is turned on here. And below that, where it says serial, you want it set to serial, because if you, which is not going to let me, I'm clicking on it, it's not doing anything, but it's because it's a wired connection, so you want that set to serial. And then the baud rate is going to be 9600. Okay, and you can set your meridian flip settings under the mount icon, and I usually just leave these to the default settings, the 5 minutes. And I have go to auto center on, and I have my exposure time set to 2 seconds, and my guide rate 0.5x. And tracking, we'll go ahead and turn that on now. And it is in a sidereal, and you have the option for solar and lunar. But if you're taking pictures of nebulae, galaxies, stuff like that, you'll want it in this sidereal tracking rate. And then at the bottom, you have your go-to home position. Okay, now go back to this. The EFW and the EAF are grayed out. I don't have either one of those connected. We're going to go to the memory icon, the memory stick icon. And this is where you'll choose if you want your images saved to the drive inside of the ASIair, the eMMC, which I never do. It's probably faster, I would guess, but I don't want to mess with that. I think that's where all the updates and everything's stored. So I just make sure I've got the USB drive clicked on right there. The little check mark is beside it, and that's where all my images get saved. And then so you'll come down to image management, and then I usually use auto run and set up my my lights and flats and stuff like that in there. But there's several different modes, and we'll get to that too. So they also have DSO stacking, planetary stacking, and then they have a auto run and plan log. And then the last icon is the information icon. Okay. If you ever have an issue, if you ever have a bug pop up, you can submit a bug report. So that's a cool feature. That's how they can fix stuff with updates. The Dream Partners are just people that I think do testing. Lots of these guys are on the ASIair groups on Facebook. I see Simon Lewis and Ian Barreto and Blaine Corsell and Bob Waterfield. Lots of names I recognize from the ASIair group on Facebook. So now the next one is experimental feature. I use this all sky polar line because I made a video and I don't have a clear shot of Polaris. So this thing is a really cool feature about the ASIair Pro Plus. Any version has this, I believe. Maybe all of them except for the very first version of the ASIair. I have not tried the new plate solving algorithm, but I do use this all sky polar line. And if you just want to normally polar line with Polaris, you'll have to make sure that you turn this off right here. But I usually just set up right outside my front door now, and I don't even need to see Polaris, and I use this all sky polar line, and it's awesome. Okay, so that's the main icons at the top. And now we're going to go over the different modes. So we have if you click on this, the highlighted where it says preview over here, you click on that and you have several different modes. Focus will take fast exposures over and over, and so if you're manually focusing, you can use this. That's the drawback to not having a DSLR and the live view, the little screen. You can't see it like real time, but this is as close as it gets. So it'll take very fast exposures and just load them over and over and over. But sometimes I don't use that. I will to get close, but sometimes I'll just take exposures if I'm manually focusing and use a Batinov mask, and I'll just take a little 2-second exposure and adjust it accordingly until I get those spikes lined up. And then we have the polar alignment function. I've got a video covering the polar alignment with the all sky method, and I can't polar align because I'm inside and it's cloudy and raining. So if you need to know how to do that, there's several videos on using polar alignment with the ASIair. And preview is how you basically, you'll want to use preview for framing up targets, plate solving. So you can set this to, and I also use preview. I usually have it set to 2 seconds or so, just to check my stars. But if you want to do a test run before you start your auto run or your plan mode, and you're not sure if you want to do 60-second exposures or maybe you want to do 180 seconds, and then you can check the histogram and see how everything's turning out, and you can decide with just using a preview before you start your plan. And let's see here, I'll just put this back to 2 seconds for now. And then you have auto run. Now, auto run it's basically what I use. You'll tap on the little 0 of 20, and that's just the last number I had up there. You'll tap on that, and that's going to take you into the auto run section. Now you can over here in the left top corner, whichever image, whichever target you're imaging, you can leave it as default, or you can name it specifically. So you could say, you know, what is that called? The pinwheel. Having a brain fart. I think M101 is usually called the pinwheel. So I could just rename it like that, hit done. And you can also set your meridian flip in the auto plan. Make sure it's on or off. You can set your first delay, your interval. If you want to turn everything off, you can click that. You can shut down the ASIair once it's done with the plan, and you can click the go to home position, and that'll return your mount to home position and then power everything off. So that's good, but I usually just babysit this stuff, so I just manually do all this. But there's so many features that I don't use in this ASIair Plus that eventually I'll get around to trying them out. But clear skies have been so rare lately. I just do what I know, because I don't, you know, I was skeptical about the all sky polar alignment, and I never tried it until I just decided to. I was like, I'm just going to try this out, and it worked, and I've been using it ever since. So I definitely need to try out some of these other features they have. So now I'll get to setting up a schedule here in auto run. I'm going to close this flat out. I'm going to delete this sequence. So you would hit this plus button right here and say we're imaging M101. I'll just change it back. The Pinwheel Galaxy. So M101. And I'll hit done. And then you'll hit the little plus. And now you can choose your sequence. You can do lights, bias, flats, and darks. And this is where you'll, instead of your intervalometer, you'll be using this as your intervalometer. So let's say we want to take 5-minute exposures. That's 300 seconds. And let's say we had a clear night and everything's looking good. And let's say we just wanted to do 30 of them. Okay, you can do 30. And or if you want to do a specific number, there's a little icon right to the right of it, and you can just click on that. And instead of 10, say 5 minutes times 12 is an hour. So let's say we want to do 2 hours. So we'd do 24. Hit done. So now we've got 2 hours worth of lights. We hit OK. That's set up. We go back, and then when you're ready to start your plan, you would just hit the shutter button on the right, and that'll start your plan, and it'll go through your exposures. So the next one is plan, and I have not messed with this very much. I usually use auto run. I believe you can do mosaics in plan mode. Let's see here. No image yet. So I don't think I have any. Nope, I don't have any images to pull from on my memory card because I took them all off. Yeah, I'll have to, this is something I'll have to mess with, is plan mode. I've not messed around with this enough to know, but I believe you do mosaics, and I don't have time to do a mosaic. I wish I did, but I don't. So I have not used plan mode. And live mode, I've not used any live stacking or DSO stacking, but like I said, there's so many features in here to use. But yep, that's the basics. And I don't have a guide scope set up. I can hook up my other scope with the guide scope and walk through that, but I'm not going to be able to get a guide star or anything like that. But yeah, so I'll just go back to preview. And now let me see what I have here. Okay. What else can we focus on? So, okay, we'll just go over the left tab, even though I can't do some of this stuff because I don't have any images saved on here. But your first one is going to be your histogram. So you can turn that off and on by just clicking on that, and that'll bring up your histogram on the bottom, and then your guide icon, your little guide graph in the top left corner. If you're not using the guiding setup, you're just taking short exposures with no guiding, you won't need to have that up there, but I usually leave that as default. And if I had an image, I could show just how well plate solving works, but I don't have one. But you can use the little solve button, it's the third one down, to plate solve. And if your lens or your scope is in focus, it usually solves really fast. And it tells you right where you are. Okay, and detect. I have not used detect, so I can't comment as to what that is, but I have used annotate, and what that'll do is once you pull up an image, you can hit the little annotate button and it'll circle whatever targets are in the frame, so that's cool too. And then you can also use the crosshairs. I usually leave that turned off, but if you want to zoom in on the moon or something, and you need those crosshairs, that's good to have if you want it. So I'll just cut that off. All right. And now the histogram itself, you have you can turn on auto stretch or not, and I think that was in the settings as well, but I usually just keep it on, and it'll give you like a little rough stretched image preview, and that helps with seeing, make sure your target's framed up how you want it. The next thing to talk about, basically, and that's the only thing I can cover without actually being outside looking at some stars, is the Sky Atlas, and that's the bottom left. I'm going to click on that, and we're going to open that up, and that is with the information that I've input. That is showing my field of view with the 50mm lens, and this is a really cool feature that they've added. And I was using Sky Safari Pro or Plus to basically use as my imaging atlas, but now you don't have to. You have one built in. So that's showing if you're, polar aligned, you're going to be facing Polaris if you're in the northern hemisphere, and you can just zoom around and find your target. So let's say you wanted to image Orion with the 50mm lens. You could just come over there, and you would tell your mount to go to it, and then you would just click on the go to button in the right corner, and it zooms on over there. Or if you're not familiar with the night sky, and say you want to do image the Orion Nebula, which is M42, it's right there. You just zoom in and see that. And say you're just not familiar with the sky, and you could just go to the little search icon in the objects, and that'll pull up tonight's best, and you can just scroll through and look for your objects like that. And I do not see M42 just popping up right off the bat. So if you don't see it, you can just it may be up here at the top. I was halfway down the list, no wonder. Okay, so we've got some planets and the moon. There's Comet ZTF, which everybody's been chasing. Yeah, I don't see M42. So if you don't see it in the chart, you can just click on and just type M42, hit search, and there it is. You can click on that, and you can hit go to, and you'll slew over to it, and then the mount will, if you're already focused, it'll plate solve and it'll center it up for you. If you have the auto center turned on, it'll take an image. If it's not centered, it'll move the mount, and then it'll basically center it up all by itself with the plate solving. So great thing to have. So yep, that's just my basic walkthrough of the ASIair Plus, and it's really I've been able to use station mode, which I just connected to my Wi-Fi router, and once I get my scope focused, I'm polar aligned, I'm balanced, I'm focused. Once I get everything that I can physically do, I come inside and I'm connected to my home Wi-Fi, and I can image from my recliner. And I couldn't do that with the laptop. I would have to, go back out there and check on it. Now, there's ways to do it with a mini PC or a laptop, but with this thing, it's just so easy. And I don't see myself ever going back to a laptop again. I did pull mine out for trying Planetary last year. I tried Planetary for the first time, and the images I got with the ASIair were really the only ones I captured, because the seeing was so bad the night I used my laptop. I really didn't get anything good. But so yeah, it is capable of doing Planetary. So, but it's not going to catch as many frames per second as you would want, like a laptop would, because it's gonna, a laptop's gonna be more powerful for that stuff. But as far as imaging galaxies and nebulae and stuff like that, it's really all you need. It's really all you need. So, yep. And like I said, there's more things to go over. I can't cover everything because I can't plate solve. I wish I had an image in here and I could show a few more things, but yeah, that's just my basic walkthrough of the basics of the ASIair Plus. One thing I forgot to mention that I can actually go over being inside is station mode, and this is one of the perks of having this thing. So you would go into the information tab. Oh, I'm sorry, the Wi-Fi, the very first one. And under Wi-Fi settings, you would go here, and station mode, I have it set to my home router, but you would click on that and turn it on. And then once you have that on, you'll switch to the 2.4G instead of the 5G. So I'm going to switch. So I switched over, and I'll go back to the settings. I'll go to Wi-Fi, and then I will connect to my router. It's connected. I open the app back up, and it just reconnected. So now, once I have this thing, everything's set up. I'm focused. I'm locked in. I'm framed up on my target how I want to be. I can walk inside and I can start imaging, and I can just set my iPad down beside my recliner and just pick it up and check on it and make sure the guiding's going well, if I got a guide set up, which I usually do. But yeah, it's so convenient to have, and that's really, I couldn't do that with the Pro because the Wi-Fi range was not good enough. But I actually probably could now because I'm using the all-sky polar line, and I'm only just a few feet from my router when I set up now, because I don't have to see Polaris. So, but yeah, I even hooked this up close to the road, and it was able to reach my router from the road. So yeah, that is one of the best features to me, is once I get everything set up, I can walk inside and I don't have to stand out there and babysit it, and it's awesome. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. That's one of the coolest features to me, is that I can kick back in my recliner and do this stuff instead of having to walk back outside and check on it, you know, and babysit it all night. So yeah, that's station mode. And one more thing I'll add in here that I forgot to mention. Now you could just physically turn off the switch on the Air, or once you're done with your imaging session, you can just go into the Wi-Fi setting here, and you want to shut it down. You're done with your plan, and just hit shut down, and then it'll power off, and close the app, and that's it. You're done. That's just my general walkthrough of the ASIair Plus. It's a great addition to your astrophotography rig if you don't have one, or if you're tired of toting your laptop outside. It's really changed the speed and my setup with this mount, and I have it mounted to my Red Cat, and it's just a grab and go setup. So I walk outside, I set this thing up, I set my scope up on it, I get polar aligned, I get focused, and then I connect to my home Wi-Fi, and then I'm back in my recliner and I'm just watching it do its thing, and it's great. It's a great thing. So my review on the ASIair Plus is 2 thumbs up. So I'm going to go over, I'm going to open this back up, and I'm just going to go to something so I can show you the mount moving. And I'm going to go into the Sky Atlas like I was before, and I'll just go over to, let me find something high in the sky over here. How about Mars? That might be high enough. Not really. It's still early in the day. Let's see. How about Capella? We'll try that. And I'm gonna hit go to. And the mount's just gonna do its thing. And it shows the scope's position and the target position, and if I was outside, this would plate solve, and if it's not directly centered, and that's what it's doing now, is it's taking an exposure to plate solve, but it's not going to be able to because I'm obviously inside, but that'll auto center itself, and then once it's framed up how I want it, I just start my auto run. So I'll stop that. And I'll go into the mount setting, and let's just go to the home position. And that's it. So yeah, I definitely recommend this ASIair Plus if you don't have one. They do have a cheaper version, the ASIair Mini. They just released a couple of months ago, and I've not tried one. I was gonna get one, but the ASIair Plus came back in stock, and I ended up going with it because of the USB 3. But if you want to try it out, it's the Mini is $200 and the Plus is $300, And if you're building a similar rig like this and you want more features than just having an intervalometer connected to your camera, which, you know, it's fine, but if you're eventually going to build into a guiding setup with a guide cam, it's a great addition to any astrophotography rig. And like I said before, their slogan is as easy as 1, 2, 3, and it really is. Once you get all of your settings dialed in and you get everything talking to each other, it is really simple. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. So yeah, that's my general walkthrough over the ASIair Plus. Hoping we get some clear skies in the future. It's not looking good this week. Rainy and clouds, and that's just how it goes in this hobby. But yeah, I'm going to hopefully be doing some more videos in the near future. And as always, thanks for watching. Clear skies, and take it easy.